Rich man refuses to shake LeBron James's hand. The next day, he begs for a favor. Welcome back to another inspiring story. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from today. Now, let me tell you about the day a tech billionaire's arrogance led to one of the most humbling moments of his life. When William Blackwood refused to shake LeBron James' hand at a charity gala, he had no idea that the very next day, he would be desperately begging for the NBA legend's help. In the grand ballroom of the Beverly Hills Hotel, crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over Los Angeles's most influential figures. The annual Children's Education Initiative Gala was in full swing, bringing together the worlds of technology, business, and professional sports. Among the attendees, William Blackwood stood out, not for his humility, but for his unmistakable air of superiority. At 45 years old, Blackwood had built his tech empire from scratch. His company, Blackwood Technologies, had revolutionized cybersecurity, making him one of Silicon Valley's most powerful figures. But success had changed him. Gone was the passionate innovator who once dreamed of making the world better. In his place stood a man who measured worth in dollars and dismissed anyone he deemed beneath him, especially athletes. As he sipped his champagne, Blackwood couldn't help but scoff at the sports figures mingling with the business elite. In his mind, they were just entertainers who got lucky, who played games for a living, while real innovators like him shaped the future. He had never bothered to learn about their contributions outside the court or field. Why should he? They were beneath his notice. The gala's organizers had strategically seated various industry leaders together, hoping to foster collaboration for their educational initiatives. Blackwood glanced at his table assignment with barely concealed disdain. He would be sharing a table with several sports figures, including LeBron James. The tech mogul's lip curled slightly. He had no interest in making small talk with someone who dribbled balls for a living. What Blackwood didn't know, or rather what he had never cared to learn, was that LeBron James was far more than just a basketball player. The NBA star had revolutionized educational access through his I Promise school, creating opportunities for thousands of underprivileged students. His impact on education rivaled any tech innovation, but such achievements meant nothing to a man who had already decided athletes weren't worth his time. As the evening progressed, the ballroom buzzed with conversation about collaboration and innovation in education. Various speakers took to the podium, sharing success stories and future initiatives. Blackwood barely paid attention, constantly checking his phone for updates from his development team about their latest software release. He didn't notice the respectful silence that fell over the room when LeBron James began his speech about the importance of combining technology with education. He didn't see the inspired looks on other tech leaders' faces as LeBron described his school's groundbreaking programs. Instead, Blackwood remained absorbed in his own world, convinced that nothing an athlete said could possibly be relevant to him. Little did William Blackwood know that his carefully constructed world of superiority was about to come crashing down. In less than 24 hours, he would find himself in a position he never imagined, desperately needing help from the very man he was about to disrespect. But for now, he remained blissfully unaware, nursing his champagne and his prejudices as the evening's events began to unfold. The next chapter of this story would prove that destiny has a way of humbling even the proudest among us. Sometimes, the people we dismiss most quickly become the very ones we need most desperately. For William Blackwood, that lesson was about to be taught in the most unexpected way possible. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere in the Beverly Hills Hotel ballroom grew more relaxed. The formal presentations had ended, and now was the time when real connections were meant to be made. This was the moment when business cards would be exchanged, partnerships formed, and futures shaped. For most attendees, it was the highlight of the evening. For William Blackwood, it was merely an inconvenience. The tech billionaire stood near the bar, deliberately positioning himself away from the crowd. His body language made it clear he wasn't interested in mingling with what he considered to be the entertainment portion of the evening's guests. The subtle shift of his shoulders, the way he angled himself toward the exit, all spoke volumes about his disdain for the gathering. What happened next would be captured by dozens of phones and shared countless times across social media. LeBron James, fresh from his inspiring speech about educational innovation, made his way through the crowd. Unlike Blackwood, LeBron moved with genuine warmth, stopping to speak with everyone who approached him. The contrast between the two men couldn't have been more striking, one radiating accessibility and humility, the other wrapped in a cloak of arrogance. LeBron had heard about Blackwood Technologies' advances in educational software. Despite the tech mogul's reputation for being difficult, LeBron saw an opportunity to enhance his I Promise Schools programs. This was, after all, why the gala existed, to bridge gaps and create partnerships for the benefit of children's education. As LeBron approached, Blackwood's expression shifted from indifference to barely concealed annoyance. The basketball legend extended his hand, his smile genuine and warm. "Mr. Blackwood," LeBron began, "I've been hoping to discuss some ideas about integrating your learning platforms into our school's curriculum." The next few seconds seemed to unfold in slow motion. Blackwood looked at LeBron's extended hand as if it were an offensive gesture. Without missing a beat, he pulled out his phone, made a show of checking it, and turned away. The dismissal was deliberate, calculated, and painfully obvious to everyone watching. The room fell silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The gentle clinking of champagne glasses ceased. Even the servers paused in their tracks, trays of hors d'oeuvres suspended in midair. The disrespect was so blatant, so unnecessary, that it seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. LeBron's response would later be praised as a masterclass in grace under pressure. He simply lowered his hand, nodded once, and said quietly, "When you're ready to discuss making a real difference in children's lives, my door is always open." Then he moved on, leaving Blackwood to his self-imposed isolation. The whispers began immediately. Phones emerged from pockets and purses, fingers typing furiously as the scene was described in tweets and messages. Several business leaders who had been waiting to speak with Blackwood suddenly found other conversations more interesting. In the span of a few seconds, he had managed to commit what many would later call social suicide in the tech world. But Blackwood remained oblivious to the damage he had done. In his mind, he had simply put an athlete in his place. He even allowed himself a small, satisfied smile as he sipped his champagne, completely unaware that he had just set in motion a chain of events that would shake his company to its core. As the evening drew to a close, guests began to leave in groups, their conversations still centered around the incident. Blackwood left alone, exactly as he had arrived, still convinced of his own superiority. His driver held the car door open, and as he settled into the leather seats, he was already forgetting about the encounter, dismissing it as insignificant. That night, as William Blackwood slept in his hillside mansion, his company's servers were processing millions of transactions, managing data for some of the world's largest corporations. Everything seemed normal, exactly as it had for the past decade. But in the early hours of the morning, something would go terribly wrong, something that would force William Blackwood to swallow his pride in the most public way possible. The tech billionaire who couldn't spare 5 minutes for a handshake would soon find himself desperately needing hours of LeBron James's time. But for now, he slept peacefully, unaware that karma was about to teach him the lesson of a lifetime. The next 24 hours would change everything, but that story was yet to unfold. The morning after the gala dawned like any other at Blackwood Technologies headquarters. The glass and steel building gleamed in the early California sunlight, its employees filtering in for another day of work. William Blackwood arrived at his usual time, his designer shoes clicking against the marble floor of the lobby as employees parted before him like water around a stone. But today would be different. The first sign came at 8:47 a.m. when his chief technology officer burst into his office without knocking, something that had never happened before. The look on her face told Blackwood everything he needed to know. Something was terribly wrong. "Sir," she began, her voice tight with tension, "we've detected a critical security vulnerability in our core platform. It's not just a small breach, it's systemic." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. In the world of cybersecurity, reputation was everything. A vulnerability like this could destroy decades of work overnight. Blackwood's face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his desk. His company's software protected the data of over 50 million users worldwide. Banks, hospitals, government agencies, they all relied on Blackwood Technologies to keep their information secure. Now, all of that was at risk. As the morning wore on, the situation grew increasingly dire. His best engineers worked frantically, their fingers flying over keyboards as they tried to isolate the problem. But this was different from anything they'd seen before. The vulnerability seemed to adapt, shifting and evolving every time they thought they had it contained. By noon, the news had leaked. Tech blogs began posting about the security flaw, and Blackwood Technologies' stock price started to fall. Slowly at first, then faster, like a boulder gaining momentum as it rolled downhill. Billions in market value vanished in hours. The empire William Blackwood had built was beginning to crumble. Emergency meetings filled the afternoon. Board members called in from around the world, their faces grim on video screens as they demanded answers. Blackwood, usually so confident and commanding, found himself without solutions. For the first time in his career, he was watching a problem he couldn't solve with money or intimidation. Then, at 3:42 p.m., a junior analyst rushed into his office with news that would change everything. "Sir," she said, barely catching her breath, "I think you need to see this." She pulled up an article about the I Promise School's cybersecurity program. The school, founded by LeBron James, had recently developed an innovative approach to dealing with exactly the kind of adaptive security threat that was now threatening to destroy Blackwood Technologies. The irony was almost too perfect. Less than 24 hours after snubbing LeBron James, William Blackwood found himself staring at the possibility that the solution to his company's biggest crisis lay in the hands of the very man he had dismissed so arrogantly. As the afternoon turned to evening, the situation grew more desperate. Major clients were calling, threatening to pull their contracts. The stock price had fallen by 40%. News channels were running the story on repeat, and social media was ablaze with speculation about the end of Blackwood Technologies. In his office on the top floor, William Blackwood paced like a caged animal. The windows that usually offered a commanding view of the city now felt like they were closing in on him. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from investors, board members, and reporters, all demanding answers he didn't have. The final blow came when his chief financial officer presented the projected losses if they couldn't fix the problem within 24 hours. The numbers were staggering, enough to potentially bankrupt even a company as successful as Blackwood Technologies. The tech titan who had built his fortune on protecting others' data now faced the ultimate humiliation, watching it all slip away because he couldn't protect his own. As night fell over Silicon Valley, William Blackwood finally admitted what he had been avoiding all day. He needed help, and not just any help. He needed the assistance of the man whose extended hand he had so publicly rejected. The question was, after such a public insult, would LeBron James even take his call? The answer to that question would determine not just the fate of Blackwood Technologies, but perhaps more importantly, the legacy of William Blackwood himself. The next few hours would test not only his humility, but his ability to admit that sometimes the people we dismiss most quickly become the very ones we need most desperately. Pride comes before a fall, they say. For William Blackwood, that fall had come swiftly and mercilessly. Now, in the early hours of the morning after discovering the security breach, he found himself doing something he had never done before, begging for help. His first call to LeBron James's office was met with polite but firm resistance. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but Mr. James's schedule is completely full for the next 2 weeks," his assistant explained, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction that didn't go unnoticed. The same man who couldn't spare 30 seconds for a handshake now wanted an immediate meeting. Blackwood tried every connection he had. He called sports agents, mutual friends, other tech leaders who had worked with LeBron's foundation. Each attempt met the same wall of polite refusal. Word of his behavior at the gala had spread quickly through their shared networks, and suddenly, doors that had always opened for him were firmly closed. His personal assistant, Sarah, who had worked with him for 15 years, finally spoke up. "Sir," she began cautiously, "perhaps if you hadn't—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. The image of LeBron's extended hand and Blackwood's deliberate snub played in his mind like a recurring nightmare. The media was having a field day with the story. Tech blogs that had once praised Blackwood's genius now ran headlines like "Tech Titans Fall from Grace" and "Pride Before the Cyber Fall." Some even drew direct connections between his behavior at the gala and his current crisis, suggesting that karma had finally caught up with Silicon Valley's most notorious egotist. By midday, Blackwood's desperation reached new heights. His company's stock had fallen another 20%. Major clients were publicly announcing their plans to switch to competitors. The vulnerability in his system remained uncontained, spreading like a digital wildfire through his once impenetrable security protocols. In a moment of pure desperation, Blackwood did something that shocked his entire staff. He got in his car and drove to the I Promise school himself. No appointment, no warning, just a man whose empire was crumbling, hoping for a chance at redemption. The school's security recognized him immediately, but not from his tech accomplishments. "You're the guy from the video," one guard said, referring to the now viral clip of the gala incident. Blackwood felt his face burn with shame. Was this how he would be remembered? Not as a tech innovator, but as the arrogant billionaire who snubbed LeBron James? As he waited in the school's reception area, Blackwood couldn't help but observe his surroundings. The walls were covered with student achievements, technological innovations, and quotes about perseverance and dignity. One quote in particular seemed to mock him. "Character is not built in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge." Hours passed. Students and teachers walked by, some whispering as they recognized him. Blackwood remained seated, his usual impatience replaced by a desperate hope that someone would take pity on him. His phone continued to buzz with crisis updates from his office, each one worse than the last. Finally, LeBron's head of educational programs emerged. Her expression was professional but cool as she delivered the message. "Mr. James is currently focused on our students' needs. However, he has asked me to remind you that, as he said last night, his door is always open when you're ready to discuss making a real difference in children's lives." The message was clear. This wasn't just about fixing a security breach. If Blackwood wanted help, he would need to demonstrate that he understood the bigger picture. His technical expertise had built an empire, but his arrogance might destroy it. Now his salvation lay in learning the lesson that LeBron had tried to teach him at the gala, that true success isn't measured by market value, but by positive impact. As Blackwood left the school that evening, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine humility. The man who had dismissed athletes as mere entertainers now found himself hoping that one such athlete would be generous enough to overlook his arrogance and help save his life's work. The next 24 hours would determine whether William Blackwood could transform this crisis into an opportunity for genuine change. But first, he would have to prove that his newfound humility was more than just a desperate act of self-preservation. The question was, how does a man known for his pride convince the world that he's truly ready to change? The next morning, William Blackwood received a text message that would change everything. 9 a.m., I Promise School, come alone. It was from LeBron James himself. For a man who once commanded entire boardrooms, Blackwood now found himself following someone else's orders without question. He arrived at the school 30 minutes early, his usual designer suit replaced by more modest attire. The morning buzz of students arriving for class filled the air with an energy that felt foreign to him. These weren't the quiet, controlled hallways of his corporate headquarters. This was real life, vibrant and unpredictable. A young student approached him, tablet in hand. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm Jasmine. Mr. James asked me to show you around before your meeting." The tech billionaire was taken aback. He had expected a security escort or an administrative assistant, not a student guide. But as he would soon learn, this was exactly the point. Jasmine led him through the school's advanced technology lab, where students were coding complex programs and developing innovative solutions to real-world problems. "This is where we created the adaptive security protocol," she explained casually, pointing to a workstation. "It started as a class project, but then we realized it could help protect against evolving cyber threats." Blackwood stopped in his tracks. The solution to his company's crisis had been developed by high school students. He watched as teenagers collaborated on projects that rivaled the work of his senior engineers. Their enthusiasm, their creativity, their fearless approach to innovation. It was everything his company had lost in its pursuit of market dominance. In the next classroom, students were presenting their solutions for community challenges. One team had developed an app to help local food banks optimize their distribution. Another was working on a privacy-focused social media platform. These weren't just school projects, they were real solutions making real impact. As they walked, Jasmine shared her own story. Her family couldn't afford a computer 3 years ago. Now, thanks to the school's program, she was leading the cybersecurity club and had already been accepted to MIT. Mr. James always tells us that technology isn't just about making money, she said. It's about making a difference. Finally, they reached LeBron's office. The basketball legend was already there, dressed casually, reviewing student proposals. He looked up and gestured for Blackwood to sit. The tech billionaire, who had rehearsed countless pitches and apologies on the drive over, found himself speechless. The walls were covered not with basketball memorabilia, but with student achievements. Tech innovation awards, coding competition trophies, and letters from grateful parents filled every shelf. This wasn't the office of just an athlete. This was the workspace of an educational revolutionary. "So," LeBron began, "you've seen what we're building here. What do you think?" The question was simple, but it carried the weight of everything Blackwood had witnessed that morning. He realized that while he had been building walls around his success, LeBron had been building bridges to create more success stories. "I was wrong," Blackwood admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was so focused on protecting my company's achievements that I forgot why I started it in the first place: to make technology accessible, to create opportunities, to make a difference." The words came from a place of genuine realization, not desperate necessity. LeBron nodded, then pulled up a presentation on his tablet. It showed the I Promise School's cybersecurity program in detail, the very solution that could save Blackwood Technologies. But instead of immediately offering help, LeBron asked another question. "What would you do with your company if we help you save it?" The question hit Blackwood like a wave of cold water. He had been so focused on saving his company that he hadn't considered what he would do differently if given a second chance. Looking around at the student projects, the innovative solutions, the lives being changed, he finally understood what real success looked like. For the next hour, LeBron shared his vision of combining education with innovation, of using technology not just to make profits, but to create opportunities. He showed how the students' approach to cybersecurity was revolutionary precisely because they weren't bound by corporate thinking or profit motives. As the meeting drew to a close, Blackwood realized he had received much more than just a potential solution to his company's crisis. He had been given a masterclass in humility, purpose, and the true potential of technology to change lives. The question now was, would he be brave enough to implement these lessons when his company was saved? The tech billionaire who had walked into the I Promise School that morning seeking a quick fix was gone. In his place stood a man beginning to understand that his greatest achievement might not be the empire he had built, but what he could do to help others build their own success stories. What happened next at the I Promise School would later be described as a master class in problem-solving and human connection. LeBron James hadn't just offered William Blackwood a solution, he had orchestrated a complete paradigm shift in how the tech mogul viewed both technology and success. The reporters, usually cynical about corporate apologies, could sense the authenticity in his words. This wasn't a carefully crafted PR statement. This was a man who had undergone a genuine transformation. As he concluded his remarks, Blackwood shared one final reflection. "2 days ago, I thought I had everything figured out. Today, I stand before you as a student, humbled by the lessons I've learned from those I once dismissed. This isn't the end of our story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter." The press conference ended, but its impact reverberated throughout the tech industry. Social media exploded with clips of his speech, with many noting the stark contrast between the arrogant billionaire from the gala video and the humbled, purposeful leader who stood before them now. As William Blackwood left the podium that day, he knew that words alone weren't enough. The real work of transformation was just beginning, and he was ready to prove that his change of heart was genuine. The tech titan who had once measured success in dollars would now measure it in lives changed and opportunities created. In the weeks following his public apology, William Blackwood proved that actions speak louder than words. The transformation of both the man and his company became a case study in genuine corporate reform. The tech titan who once couldn't spare a handshake was now spending every Friday afternoon mentoring students at the I Promise School. The changes at Blackwood Technologies were immediate and profound. The company's sleek lobby, once adorned with awards and stock prices, now featured a digital wall showcasing student innovations and community impact stories. Employees noticed that their CEO, known for his intimidating presence, now stopped to learn everyone's names and hear their ideas. One morning, Blackwood arrived at his office to find an unexpected email from a junior developer. The young employee had an idea for making their educational software more accessible to students with disabilities. In the past, such an email would have been filtered out by layers of management. Now, Blackwood not only read it, but invited the developer to present the idea directly to the board. The company's transformation caught the attention of the tech industry. Competitors watched in amazement as Blackwood Technologies began hosting monthly innovation open houses, where high school students from across the country could present their tech solutions to real-world problems. The most promising ideas received not just funding, but ongoing mentorship from the company's top engineers. LeBron James observed these changes with quiet satisfaction. He had seen something in Blackwood that others had missed, not just a tech leader who needed humbling, but a man capable of genuine change when confronted with his own prejudices. The basketball legend began recommending other schools for partnership opportunities, creating a network of innovation that spread far beyond the I Promise school. The impact on Blackwood Technologies' corporate culture was revolutionary. The company introduced a new policy requiring all executives to spend at least one day a month teaching or mentoring in underserved schools. What started as a mandatory requirement soon became something employees looked forward to, with many volunteering additional time. One particular Tuesday became legendary within the company. Blackwood walked into a meeting with his board of directors, accompanied by a group of high school students from various partner schools. Instead of the usual quarterly review, the students presented their perspectives on the company's products and initiatives. The board members, initially skeptical, found themselves taking notes as teenagers offered insights that their expensive consultants had missed. The media, which had initially treated Blackwood's transformation with cynicism, began reporting on the tangible results. Blackwood Technologies' new mentorship program had helped launch dozens of student-led startups. Their educational software, redesigned with input from teachers and students, was now being used in schools across the country. The company's stock price, after initially dropping, reached new highs as investors recognized the value of genuine social impact. But the most remarkable changes were in Blackwood himself. The man who once measured success solely in profit margins now spent hours listening to students' stories, understanding their challenges, and working to create real solutions. His calendar, once filled with exclusive business meetings, now included regular teaching sessions at partner schools. During one of these sessions, a student asked him what had been the hardest part of changing. Blackwood's answer revealed how deep his transformation went. "The hardest part wasn't admitting I was wrong," he said. "It was realizing how much I had missed by believing I was always right." The partnership with the I Promise School expanded beyond technology. Blackwood Technologies began offering paid internships to students, creating a pipeline of diverse talent that would shape the future of the tech industry. The company's hiring practices changed too, focusing not just on prestigious degrees, but on creativity, problem-solving ability, and community impact. As Blackwood walked through his company's offices 6 months after the crisis, the change was palpable. The competitive, high-pressure environment had been replaced by one of collaboration and purpose. Employees no longer feared making mistakes. They were encouraged to learn from them, just as their CEO had learned from his. The transformation reached beyond the company walls. Other tech leaders, seeing the success of Blackwood's new approach, began launching their own educational initiatives. The industry that had once been known for its exclusive, elitist culture was slowly becoming more accessible, more diverse, and more focused on creating positive change. For William Blackwood, this wasn't just a corporate turnaround story. It was a personal revolution, a complete reimagining of what success meant and how it could be achieved. The man who had once dismissed athletes as mere entertainers now understood that true leadership isn't about the title you hold, but the lives you change. The story of William Blackwood's transformation could have ended with his company's successful turnaround, but what happened next would reshape the relationship between the business and sports worlds forever. The partnership between Blackwood Technologies and the I Promise School was about to create waves that would ripple through industries far beyond technology. It began with a joint announcement that surprised everyone. LeBron James and William Blackwood stood together at center court during halftime of a Lakers game to unveil the Future Innovators Scholarship Program. This wasn't just another corporate scholarship. It was a comprehensive initiative that would identify talented students from underserved communities and provide them with not just education, but mentorship, internships, and guaranteed job opportunities. The announcement captured national attention, but it was what happened behind the scenes that truly demonstrated the power of their collaboration. Other athletes, seeing LeBron's success in education, began reaching out to Blackwood for advice on starting their own initiatives. Meanwhile, tech CEOs, who had previously dismissed sports figures as potential partners, were suddenly scheduling meetings with athletes' foundations. During one particularly memorable meeting, a group of skeptical tech executives sat in Blackwood's conference room, questioning the value of partnering with athletic organizations. Without saying a word, Blackwood led them to the I Promise School's tech lab. There, they watched in amazement as students presented solutions to real-world problems that their own R&D departments had struggled with for months. The impact spread rapidly. NBA players began hosting coding camps alongside their basketball clinics. Tech companies started sponsoring STEM programs in inner-city schools. The artificial divide between sports and technology was crumbling, replaced by a recognition that different perspectives could lead to better solutions. But it wasn't just about technology and sports. The Blackwood-James partnership became a model for breaking down stereotypes in all industries. Business leaders who had previously dismissed athletes as just entertainers now saw them as valuable partners in education and community development. Athletes who had been hesitant to engage with the tech world found themselves embracing new opportunities to make a difference. One day, during a joint interview, a reporter asked LeBron what made this partnership different from other corporate initiatives. His answer was simple but profound. It's real. William didn't just write a check. He changed how he thinks, how he operates, and what he values. That's what makes this work. The changes were evident in the numbers. Within months, the Future Innovators program had expanded to 20 cities. Students who had never considered careers in technology were now leading innovation projects. More importantly, they were bringing perspectives and solutions that traditional tech education had missed. Blackwood's own employees began volunteering in record numbers. The company had to create a wait list for its mentorship program because so many staff members wanted to participate. The culture shift was so dramatic that other companies started sending their executives to study Blackwood Technology's new approach to corporate responsibility. During a tech conference, Blackwood shared a story that captured the essence of the transformation. He described visiting a coding class at the I Promise School and watching a student solve a complex security problem. She didn't just fix the code, he explained. She questioned why we wrote it that way in the first place. That's when I realized, we're not just teaching these kids, they're teaching us. The partnership's success attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Government agencies began consulting with Blackwood and LeBron about educational policy. International organizations reached out to replicate their model in other countries. What had started as a crisis-driven collaboration was becoming a global movement for change. Perhaps the most powerful moment came during a graduation ceremony at the I Promise School. A student who had been part of the first Future Innovators class took the stage. She described how she had once believed tech careers were out of reach for people like her. Now, she was heading to MIT with a full scholarship and a guaranteed position at Blackwood Technologies. As she spoke, cameras caught William Blackwood wiping away tears. The man who had once dismissed an NBA legend's handshake was now crying at a high school graduation. It was a powerful reminder of how far he had come and how much impact one changed heart could have. The media dubbed it the Blackwood-James effect, the phenomenon of business leaders and athletes coming together to create meaningful change. But for William Blackwood and LeBron James, it was simply about doing what was right, about using their influence and resources to open doors for others. Their partnership proved that true change doesn't come from grand gestures or publicity stunts. It comes from genuine transformation, from the willingness to admit mistakes, learn from others, and work together for something bigger than individual success. 1 year after the fateful gala incident, the transformation that began with a refused handshake had become a case study in corporate and social innovation. The legacy of the Blackwood-James collaboration was no longer measured in headlines or stock prices, but in lives changed and barriers broken. Walking through the halls of Blackwood Technologies, visitors were struck by the dramatic shift in culture. The once sterile corporate environment now buzzed with energy as students from the I Promise School and other partner institutions regularly filled the offices, working alongside seasoned engineers on real-world projects. The company's lobby displayed a digital wall of success stories, not of profit margins, but of students whose lives had been transformed through their programs. The numbers told an impressive story. In just 1 year, the Blackwood-James initiative had provided advanced technology education to over 10,000 underprivileged students across the country. More than 500 had received full scholarships to top universities, with guaranteed internships at leading tech companies. But the real impact went far beyond statistics. During a tech conference in Silicon Valley, William Blackwood took the stage to share his company's journey. Instead of the usual PowerPoint presentation filled with growth charts, he brought 3 students from the I Promise School. As they demonstrated their innovations, seasoned tech executives watched in amazement. These teenagers weren't just coding, they were reimagining how technology could solve community problems. A year ago, Blackwood told the audience, I thought success was about building walls to protect what we had. These students taught me that real success comes from building bridges to create opportunities for others. The applause that followed wasn't just for his words, it was for the visible proof of transformation standing beside him. LeBron James, watching from the audience, smiled knowingly. The basketball legend had seen something in Blackwood that others had missed, the potential for genuine change. Their partnership had grown beyond a simple collaboration between a tech company and a school. It had become a model for how business and sports could work together to create lasting social impact. The I Promise School's technology program, once a small initiative, had become a national standard. Other schools across the country were adopting their curriculum, which combined traditional computer science with real-world problem-solving. Students weren't just learning to code, they were learning to think critically about how technology could serve their communities. Perhaps the most significant change was in how the tech industry viewed talent. Companies that had once recruited exclusively from prestigious universities were now sending representatives to high schools in underserved communities. The success of Blackwood Technologies' diverse workforce had proven that innovation flourishes when different perspectives are brought together. One particular project captured the essence of their achievement. A team of I Promise School students, mentored by Blackwood Technologies engineers, developed a mobile app that helped small businesses in their community compete with larger corporations. The app won numerous awards, but more importantly, it demonstrated how technology could be used to level the playing field. William Blackwood had also changed on a personal level. The man who once measured his worth by his net worth now found his greatest satisfaction in mentoring young innovators. He regularly taught classes at the I Promise School, sharing not just his technical knowledge, but also the lessons he had learned about humility, growth, and the true meaning of success. During a joint interview, a reporter asked LeBron and Blackwood about the secret to their successful partnership. LeBron's answer was simple. We stopped seeing each other as a basketball player and a tech CEO. We saw each other as people committed to making a difference. Blackwood nodded in agreement, adding, sometimes the best innovations come from the most unexpected collaborations. The impact on the business world was profound. Other companies began re-examining their approach to corporate responsibility. The idea that social impact and business success could go hand in hand was no longer seen as idealistic. Blackwood Technologies had proven it was practical and profitable. As the year drew to a close, Blackwood received an email that brought tears to his eyes. It was from a student who had been part of their first mentorship program. She was now starting her own tech company, focused on developing educational software for children with learning disabilities. You and Mr. James taught me that technology isn't just about making money, she wrote. It's about making a difference. That email now hung framed in Blackwood's office, next to the photograph from the infamous gala, where he had refused LeBron's handshake. The contrast between those two moments, one of arrogance, one of impact, served as a daily reminder of how far he had come and how much further there was still to go. The story of transformation reached its most poignant chapter when Maria Rodriguez, a student from the first Blackwood-James scholarship class, walked into Blackwood Technologies' main conference room, the teenager who had once helped save the company during its security. Crisis was now presenting her own groundbreaking app, a platform that could revolutionize how schools deliver personalized education. The conference room was packed with an unusual mix of attendees. Tech investors sat beside high school students, while LeBron James and William Blackwood watched from the back of the room, letting Maria command the spotlight she had earned. The young innovator stood confidently at the podium, her presence a testament to how much could change in just 18 months. Maria's journey had become legendary within both Blackwood Technologies and the I Promise School. From a family that once couldn't afford a computer, she had risen to become one of the most promising young developers in the country. But it wasn't just her technical skills that impressed people, it was her vision for using technology to solve real-world problems. As she demonstrated her app, the room fell silent in appreciation. The platform used artificial intelligence to adapt to each student's learning style, creating personalized educational pathways that could help struggling students catch up while challenging advanced learners to push further. It was exactly the kind of innovation that the Blackwood-James partnership had been created to nurture. When I first started at the I Promise School, Maria told the audience, I thought technology was something that happened in other neighborhoods, to other people. Mr. James showed me that I belonged in this world, and Mr. Blackwood taught me how to navigate it. Her words brought smiles to both men's faces, remembering their own journey from adversaries to mentors. The app had already been tested in several schools, with remarkable results. Students who had been falling behind were showing significant improvement, while teachers reported being able to better understand and address their students' individual needs. It was technology with a purpose, exactly what Blackwood had learned to value over the past year. LeBron and William had taken a special interest in mentoring Maria, seeing in her the perfect blend of technical brilliance and social consciousness. They met with her weekly, not just to discuss coding and business strategies, but to ensure she maintained her vision of using technology for social good. During one of these mentoring sessions, Maria had asked them about the famous gala incident that had started it all. Instead of avoiding the uncomfortable topic, Blackwood used it as a teaching moment. Sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our greatest opportunities for growth, he told her. The key is being willing to learn and change. The impact of their mentorship became evident as Maria fielded questions from the audience. She handled technical queries with expertise while never losing sight of her project's core, purpose, making quality education accessible to all students. It was a perfect synthesis of Blackwood's technical knowledge and LeBron's educational vision. Business schools had already begun using the Blackwood-James partnership as a case study in corporate transformation and social impact. But watching Maria present her innovation, both men realized they were witnessing something even more significant: the emergence of a new generation of tech leaders who saw no conflict between profit and purpose. After the presentation, as investors crowded around Maria with funding offers, LeBron turned to Blackwood. "Remember when you thought athletes couldn't understand technology?" he asked with a smile. Blackwood laughed, shaking his head at his former arrogance. "I remember thinking I had all the answers," he replied. "Now I know the real wisdom is in asking the right questions." The success of students like Maria had inspired other corporate leaders to rethink their approach to talent development. Companies that had once focused solely on top-tier universities were now creating programs to identify and nurture promising students from underserved communities. The pipeline of talent was expanding, bringing fresh perspectives and innovations to the tech industry. Maria's app soon became required reading in business ethics courses across the country, not just for its technical innovation, but as an example of how technology could be developed with a clear social purpose. Students studied how she had combined cutting-edge AI with a deep understanding of educational needs, creating something that was both profitable and socially impactful. As the presentation concluded, Maria shared one final thought that captured the essence of everything the Blackwood-James partnership had achieved. "Success isn't just about what you build," she said, echoing lessons learned from both her mentors. "It's about who you help build along the way." Watching from the back of the room, William Blackwood and LeBron James exchanged knowing looks. The refused handshake that had once symbolized division had led to a partnership that was now building bridges across generations. Through students like Maria, their impact would continue long after their own stories were done. The story of William Blackwood and LeBron James isn't just about a refused handshake or a tech crisis that led to an unlikely partnership. It's about the power of transformation, the importance of humility, and how true success comes from lifting others up rather than looking down on them. As we conclude this remarkable journey, let's reflect on what happened after that fateful night at the charity gala. A tech billionaire who once dismissed athletes as mere entertainers discovered that some of life's most valuable lessons can come from those we least expect. A man who measured success in dollars and market share learned that real wealth lies in the lives you change and the bridges you build. The ripple effects of their partnership continue to spread. Today, the Blackwood-James Initiative has expanded to 50 cities across America. Over 20,000 students from underserved communities have received advanced technology education through their programs, but numbers only tell part of the story. Walk into any Blackwood Technologies office now, and you'll see the physical transformation. The walls that once displayed stock prices and corporate awards now showcase student innovations and community impact stories. The company's lobby features a digital memorial of that famous refused handshake, not as a reminder of shame, but as a testament to the power of change. In conference rooms where billion-dollar deals are discussed, you'll find high school students confidently presenting their ideas to industry leaders. The company that once judged worth by Ivy League degrees now seeks talent in unexpected places, understanding that innovation can come from anywhere if you're willing to look. LeBron James often reflects on that night at the gala, not with bitterness, but with appreciation for how a moment of disrespect became a catalyst for positive change. His I Promise School has become a model for how education, technology, and sports can work together to create opportunities for the next generation. The story has become required teaching in business schools, not just as a case study in crisis management, but as a lesson in the true meaning of leadership. Students learn that success isn't about maintaining walls of privilege, but about building bridges of opportunity. William Blackwood, the man who once couldn't spare 30 seconds for a handshake, now spends every Friday afternoon mentoring students from underserved communities. He often tells them, "My biggest success wasn't building a tech empire, it was learning to see potential in places I used to ignore." But perhaps the most powerful testament to their impact comes from the students themselves. Young innovators like Maria Rodriguez aren't just entering the tech industry, they're transforming it, bringing fresh perspectives and a deep understanding of how technology can serve communities, not just profits. The Blackwood-James partnership proved that true change doesn't come from grand gestures or public apologies alone. It comes from the daily commitment to do better, to be better, and to create opportunities for others to succeed. This story asks us to examine our own biases and assumptions. How often do we dismiss others based on superficial judgments? How many opportunities for growth and collaboration do we miss because we're too proud to extend or accept a hand of friendship? Think about your own life. Have you ever misjudged someone only to discover their true value later? Have you experienced the power of forgiveness and transformation? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's create a conversation about how we can all work together to build a more inclusive and collaborative future. Remember, it's never too late to change. William Blackwood could have let his pride destroy everything he built. Instead, he allowed adversity to teach him humility, and that humility opened doors to possibilities he never imagined. Before we end, take a moment to reflect on this. Success isn't about how high you climb, but about how many people you bring up with you. It's about recognizing that every person you meet, regardless of their background, profession, or appearance, has something valuable to teach you. If you've been inspired by this story, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tag a friend who might be struggling with similar prejudices, or someone who needs encouragement to embrace change. And remember, like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of transformation and the importance of treating everyone with respect. Drop a comment below, telling us where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another powerful story of transformation, redemption, and the unexpected ways life teaches us its most valuable lessons. Until then, remember, Sometimes, the hand you refuse to shake today might be the one you need to help you up tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep believing in the power of change, the strength of humility, and the endless possibilities that open up when we learn to see beyond our prejudices. This is more than just a story. It's a call to action for all of us to be better, do better, and help others rise higher.